In this video, I will take a close look starting at the site of the North American Star Tetrahedron that extends from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I will extend the alignment out across oceans and continents, all the way to Capetown, South Africa. In this process, I will be highlighting some ancient sacred sites and infrastructure, as well as hotspots in our modern history. My name is Michelle Gibson. The northern apex of the Star Tetrahedron is Edmonton, Alberta. Edmonton is the capital of the province of Alberta, and it sits on the North Saskatchewan River. Compare the appearance of Edmonton's location on the bend of this river with this city in Guizhou Province in China. This is a historic view of Jasper Avenue in Edmonton, with the building in the foreground on the left with its heavy masonry and arched windows. Here on the left is the Alberta Hotel, compared with the Detroit Savings Bank on the top right, the Plaza Hotel in Roswell, New Mexico, and a building in Kherson, Ukraine on the bottom right. This is Fort Assiniboine, a small hamlet in Alberta not far from Edmonton, and was founded as a trading post, we are told, by the Hudson Bay Company in 1824. The Assiniboine are said to be Plains Cree and were a major part of an alliance known as the Iron Confederacy, or Nehiyu-Puat. Another Fort Assiniboine, south of Edmonton in Montana, was a U.S. Army post established in 1879 and abandoned in 1911. It was said to have been established to prevent Sioux Chief Sitting Bull from returning to the United States from Canada and to control the local Indian population. This is what the bachelor officers' quarters look like with its turreted tower. And this is the pyramidal-shaped Mount Assiniboine on the British Columbia border with Alberta in what are called the Canadian Rockies. From Edmonton, this alignment passes through all of the capitals of the Canadian provinces, as well as Ottawa, the national capital of Canada. Next is Saskatoon, the capital of Saskatchewan. It straddles a bend in the South Saskatchewan River and is the largest city in Saskatchewan. The palatial Delta Bessborough Hotel was said to have been built for the Canadian Pacific Railway from 1928 to 1932. And more of the same corner architecture and layout seen worldwide. These are the Cypress Hills megaliths, where there was a massacre in 1873 when a group of American bison hunters, American wolf hunters, and American and Canadian whiskey traders supposedly banded together over allegations of horse theft and murdered a number of people in an Assiniboine camp. This, at least, is what the historical record tells us for the reason. On Mount Saskatchewan, the Lighthouse Tower was the name given to a 246-foot or 75-meter high pinnacle on the eastern ridge of the mountain. I can't find a close-up picture of the lighthouse because that would be an interesting one to see. Next is Winnipeg, Manitoba, the capital city of Manitoba, which is centered on the Red and Assiniboine rivers. Here are some historic buildings in Winnipeg, with the Hudson Bay Company building pictured on the top, and the Manitoba Legislative Building on the bottom left, the Law Courts in the middle, and the Ashdown Building on the bottom right. Next, we come to Thunder Bay, Ontario on the alignment, and we have crossed into the southern edge of the Canadian Shield, also known as the Laurentian Plateau. Thunder Bay is the seat of the Thunder Bay District in Ontario and is located at the head of Lake Superior. It was previously known as Fort William and Port Arthur. This land feature is known as the Sleeping Giant in a provincial park in Thunder Bay. The Hudson Bay Company merged with the original trading post located there at Fort William, pictured here. So they want us to believe these buildings were the original structures of the area, instead of these buildings here. The Canadian Shield, or Laurentian Plateau, is called one of the world's largest geologic continental shelves of exposed Precambrian, igneous, and high-grade metamorphic rock that forms the ancient geological core of North America. So I want to share some photos with you of what it looks like with all those nice straight edges and angles. Moving on down this alignment, we next come to Isle Royale, which is located in Lake Superior. Isle Royale is known for its ancient copper mines. As a matter of fact, the copper from Isle Royale was being mined extensively in the Bronze Age, around 3000 BC, and was considered the purest copper in the world. And nobody can really explain who was responsible for the mining and how it got to Europe. The best they can come up with is also how they explain the people who built the mounds, and they definitely can't explain how it got to Europe. Western archaeologists tell us that somehow Indians in loincloths figured out how to mine copper 5,000 years ago, and that somehow, we really don't know how, it got to Bronze Age Europe before there was transoceanic trade. The next stop is Ottawa, Ontario, the national seat of government of Canada. It stands on the south bank of the Ottawa River in the eastern portion of southern Ontario. This is a historic post office in Ottawa. A historic photo of Ottawa taken in the 1800s. The Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa. And the Parliament buildings. Here's the Rideau Canal in Ottawa, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and connects Ottawa with Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence Seaway. It was said to have been built in 1832. I asked the same question that I have raised in previous videos about canals, much less all of these buildings with heavy masonry. What technology, based on what we are taught about our history, could have existed at that time, 1832 in the case of the Rideau Canal, to build a sophisticated waterway like this? According to our historical narrative, it would have been completed before the Industrial Revolution, which didn't come to Canada until the 1860s. It quite simply does not match up with what we are taught. On across the U.S. border to Burlington, Vermont. Burlington is the county seat of Chittenden County, and with its population of 50,000, is still the largest city in the state of Vermont. It is located on the eastern shoreline of Lake Champlain. Here are historic photos of Burlington. And this is Taconic State Park near Burlington, which has mounds and enormous block-shaped rocks. One of the first things I realized is that for as much of the ancient civilization that is destroyed, neglected, or incorporated in unprotected places, much is preserved intact in federal, state, and local parks. I must say that to this day, I'm never disappointed. I can't emphasize enough that this ancient civilization is everywhere. Next, the alignment goes through Montpelier, Vermont. Montpelier is the state capital. Here is the Montpelier City Hall, and a building in Montpelier, Vermont, compared with one in Summerside, Prince Edward Island. Not identical architecture, but similar. Next, we come to Portland, Maine, which is the largest city in Maine and located on Maine's Atlantic coast. This is a comparison of the lighthouse in Portland on the left and Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia on the right. Also, here is a street view of Portland on top, compared with a very familiar look to me from other cities in very different places. The bottom left is Edinburgh, Scotland, the middle is from Zagreb, Croatia, and on the bottom right is Ellicott City, Maryland. From here, the alignment crosses over the Atlantic Ocean and heads towards the island of Tenerife in the Canary Islands and North Africa. Tenerife is the largest and most populated island of the Canary Islands, and its capital is Santa Cruz de Tenerife. The Canary Islands are an autonomous community province of Spain and are located off the coast of Morocco. Here are photos comparing a building configuration that I have found throughout these alignments in Tenerife on the left, Burlington, Vermont in the middle, and Summerside, Prince Edward Island on the right. In this comparison of roof styles, on the left is this building in Tenerife, the building on the top right is in Montpelier, Vermont, and the one on the bottom right is in Yalta on the Crimean Peninsula. Here are more triple and double windows. On the top is a view of Santa Cruz de Tenerife, and on the bottom is the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. The pyramids of Guimar are located in the town of Guimar on the island of Tenerife, terraced structures that were built from lava stone without the use of mortar. Compared with the pyramids of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, also terraced structures made of lava stone, there are 7 terraced pyramids in Mauritius and 6 in Guimar. In both places, they are in perfect astrological alignment with the winter and summer solstices. From the Canary Islands, the alignment enters the continent of Africa at Laayoune, or El Ayoun, in the Western Sahara, the meaning of which refers to water springs. Here I would like to interject that I have found springs of all kinds, including hot springs, located in places on the alignments that I have tracked. The top 2 photos on the left are buildings in Laayoune. The top photo on the right is Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. and below that on the right is the Moscow State Historical Museum in Russia. On the bottom is the Milan Natural History Museum in Italy. There are two national parks in Algeria's Tamanrasset province, the Hagar, also known as Hagar Mountains, and Tassili in Alger. First, photos of the Hagar Mountains. These are considered a highland region of the Central Sahara in southern Algeria, along the Tropic of Cancer. Second, here are some photos from another national park, Tassili in Alger, which means Plateau of the Rivers. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is known for its distinctive rock artwork, some of which is pretty much recognizable from our reality as we know it. Bull, charioteer, giraffe, and some of it not of this world as we know it. Here are some photos of the landscape of Tassili in Alger. I believe the landforms I am showing you in this video are ruins of ancient infrastructure and not natural features. Whether or not you are able to believe this, throughout this video I will provide evidence as to why I believe this. For example, the landform on the left is in Tamanrasset province, and the one pictured on the right is Chimney Rock in Sedona, Arizona. And in this slide on the left, you see a landform in Tamanrasset province, and the photo on the right was taken at Heavener Runestone State Park in Heavener, Oklahoma. A few more things before I leave Algeria. The first is that I would like to point out a few things in Constantine, Algeria, which is in northeastern Algeria, close to the Mediterranean Sea. Whoever built this place is comfortable with stone and heights. This is what a city on the rocks looks like. For a direct comparison to illustrate one of the points I want to make, here is a series of 3 pictures. The photo on the top left is called Natural Arch in Constantine. On the top right is what is called the Bridge Arch in Constantine, and the one on the bottom was taken of a building in Grozny in the Chechen Republic in Russia. The other point that I would like to make is about the Algerian Civil War, the duration of which was between 1991 and 2002. It involved an armed conflict between the Algerian government and various Islamic rebel groups. It began after a coup negating an Islamist electoral victory in which the government was trying to crush the Islamist movement. But armed groups emerged to fight against the government, and many Algerians were killed. From Algeria, the alignment crosses into the country of Niger, where it goes through the Air and Tener National Nature Reserves. Pictured top and bottom to the right of the map shows a good example for me of what I think are actually under sand dunes. The Air and Tener National Nature Reserve is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It covers 29,870 square miles, or 77,360 square kilometers. It is comprised of the eastern half of the Air Mountains and the western half of the Tener Desert in Niger. From there, the alignment crosses through Bilma, Niger. Bilma is an oasis town and used to be a key stop in the Trans-Saharan caravan route. It is protected from sand from the desert dunes by the Kawar escarpment. I think escarpment is another key code word that covers up ancient infrastructure. To this day, it produces salt in salt pans, sold for livestock use throughout West Africa. Lastly, I would like to point out the Niger Delta Civil War and Boko Haram. There has been conflict in the Niger Delta since the early 1990s as well, mostly between foreign oil companies and minority ethnic groups, and has been ongoing in one form or another since that time. The Islamic State in West Africa has been active in Niger, Nigeria, Chad, and northern Cameroon since 2002, and has been known as Boko Haram since 2015. It is a militant jihadist group that advocates for Sharia law and has been particularly noteworthy for militant insurgency and child kidnappings, among other things. Moving on into Chad, a landlocked country in Central Africa. The Bedeli Depression and Koro Toro are both on the alignment in the Borku Inedi Tibesti region of Chad. The Bodeli Depression is the lowest point in Chad and is best known for its dust storms, which deliver fertile dust said to be essential for places like the Amazon rainforest. The Bodeli Depression lies between Lake Chad to the south of it, and note the pyramidal shapes in the background, and the Tibesti Mountains are to the north of the Bodeli Depression. Here are photos from the Tibesti Mountains on the top and in the middle, and Bell Rock in Sedona in Arizona on the bottom. Here are more photos taken of the Tibesti Mountains in Chad. Here's a photo comparing a rock formation in this region of Chad on the left and one in the Tamanrasset province in Algeria on the right that is called No Arch. They both look a lot like elephants to me. Koro Turo is also on the alignment and is an archaeological and anthropological site in Chad, best known for the discovery of an Australopithecus fragment in 1995, which is described as one of the first hominids in the ancestry of human evolution. There have been roughly 4 civil wars in Chad since independence from France in 1960. The last one started in 2005 between Muslims in the north and Christians in the south, and is continuing on in some form or another to the present day. From Chad, the alignment crosses through El Obeid, Sudan, which is the capital of North Kordofan. Here's a comparison of a mosque in El Obeid on the left and the Signoria, the government building of medieval and Renaissance Florence, Italy. Also, there are pyramids in Sudan, located in Meroe, which is northeast of the country's capital of Khartoum. As the map shows, Sudan is due south of Egypt. Meroe is an ancient city that sits on the east bank of the Nile River. This region was considered part of the historical kingdom of Kush. Here's a comparison of the Meroe pyramids on the left and similar-looking pyramids in Tamanrasset province back in Algeria. The first Sudanese civil war started in 1955 between North and South Sudan, with a state of civil war existing in Sudan to the present day. From here, the alignment goes on into Ethiopia, on which we find Lake Tana, Gondar, and Lalibela, Ethiopia. Lake Tana is the source of the Blue Nile and the largest lake in Ethiopia. It is a sacred lake. Among other things, the heart-shaped Lake Tana has a living tradition about being a place where Joseph, Mary, and Jesus stayed on their way back to Israel after fleeing Herod, and also as a place where the Ark of the Covenant was kept for 800 years before going to Axum, where it is said to be currently. More on this shortly. This first set of 2 photos is a comparison of a bridge near Lake Tana on the top with the old bridge near Loch Slogachan on the Isle of Skye off the coast of Scotland on the bottom. This next set of 2 bridges is a comparison of the River Nith Old Bridge in Dumfries, Scotland on the top, and the Burnside Bridge at Antietam in Maryland on the bottom, which was the site of a major battle of the American Civil War. Gondar is a royal and historic city of Ethiopia and the imperial seat from the 1200s to the 1900s. It is a city of castles and palaces. Lalibela is the second holiest of Ethiopia's cities after Axum. It is famous for its monolithic churches, meaning cut out of one rock. The population of Lalibela is almost completely Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. Axum is believed to be the home of the Ark of the Covenant at the St. Mary of Zion Church. Though there is more than one obelisk here, this is the granite obelisk of Axum. It is 24 meters high and weighs 160 tons. Like the churches of Lalibela, it is also monolithic in that it was crafted from a single piece of stone. Civil war started in Ethiopia in 1974 with a coup initiated by a Marxist-Leninist faction, leading to the overthrow of the imperial government in 1975 and formally ending in 1991. The war left at least 1.4 million dead. From Ethiopia, this alignment goes through Hargeisa, Somalia. Hargeisa is the largest city and capital of the self-declared province of Somaliland. It is not recognized internationally. So, as is typical of so many places, this is the fate of much of the beautiful historic architecture of Somalia, to be replaced by what you see now in 21st century Hargeisa, contrasted with the building in the background in this historic photo of Hargeisa. Here are some historic photos and locations around Somalia that may or may not still be standing. Lastly, the alignment leaves Somalia at the city of Isle. This region of Somalia is known as Puntland, which was established in 1998. Somalia itself is more than likely the ancient land of Punt, which was a trading partner with Egypt. This is the Dervish castle at Isle, as well as the building in this historic photo. The Somali Civil War started in the 1980s and is ongoing. On the other side of the alignment, going through Africa, you come to the Maldives, a sovereign state in the Indian Ocean, situated in the Arabian Sea and southwest of Sri Lanka and India. It crosses over the area of Male, the capital city of this island country. In the top photo, you see the capital of Male, and the bottom, you see a nearby resort. Of particular interest are the nicely engineered protected harbors on both islands, and the straight street alignment in the top photo bisecting the island. The Maldives have a strong cultural and linguistic connection to the Tamil Dravidian culture of India and Sri Lanka. While not pictured here, the Maldives lie a relatively short distance southwest of the Dravidian map pictured here. We are told the Maldives became a sultanate in 1153 when the king converted from Buddhism to Islam. Before that, the people of the Maldives were Buddhist, prior to that Hindu, and originally was a matriarchal society with each atoll ruled by a chief queen. In the following historical photos, this was a Buddhist statue from the Maldives, and the Maldives are said to have a 1400-year history of Buddhism until the year 1153 AD, as well as this Buddhist stupa pictured here. Today, Islam is the mandatory religion in the Maldives. This is the Old Friday Mosque in Malé. It is made from coral stone, and on the inside has unique coral stonework and woodwork, as well as lacquer work. The formal title of the Sultan of the Maldives was Sultan of Land and Sea, Lord of the 12,000 Islands, and Sultan of the Maldives. In 1796, the British included the Maldives as a British protected area, and it officially became a British protectorate in 1887, with an understanding that they were involved in external affairs like military defense, and the Sultan was responsible for home rule. Eventually, the Sultan's ruling powers were taken over by his ministers, and a constitutional monarchy was proclaimed in 1932, with the Sultan remaining as nominal head. In 1965, the Sultan became a king with independence from Britain. Then in 1968, the 853-year-old monarchy ended with the establishment of a republic in a national referendum. This is a photo of the last monarch of the Maldives, King Mohammed Farid Didi. The Sultan's palace was demolished, and the grounds became Sultan Park. What was left of the palace was converted into the Maldives National Museum, which houses a complete collection of royal artifacts as well as archaeological finds throughout the islands, many of which speak to its Buddhist and Hindu past. This is the Muli Aga, now the presidential residence, but was said to have been completed in 1919 as a residence for the heir of the Sultan at the time. In the decades since the establishment of the Republic, the political history of the Maldives has been rather tumultuous, punctuated with many episodes of civil unrest and political instability. From the Maldives, the alignment crosses the Indian Ocean and enters the island of Java through the Sunda Strait as it goes across Indonesia. There are a couple of noteworthy tidbits about this location. One is that the island of Krakatoa is located here. Krakatoa is a volcanic island that exploded in a major eruption in 1883 with global effects. It was one of the deadliest and most destructive volcanic events in recorded history. It destroyed most of the island, affected the region with pyroclastic flows and volcanic ash. Global aftereffects included tsunamis and climatic changes involving a cooling of temperatures over the next few years. The other is that there was a World War II naval battle that took place here in 1942. This was not the only battle that took place on a grid line during the Second World War. There were actually many of them that did, not only in World War II, but other wars and conflicts as well. The alignment goes through Bandung, the capital of West Java. Bandung was called the Paris of Indonesia by its Dutch colonizers, who started colonizing here in the 1700s as the Dutch East India Company and is known today for a certain European feel. Here are some historic pictures of Bandung. And these are some photos of the landscape in which Bandung is located. The alignment goes through Yogyakarta in central Java. Yogyakarta was the capital of the Mataram Sultanate from 1587 to 1613. Even today, it is considered a center of education, classical Javanese fine art, and cultural activities of all kinds. This is also the location of Borobudur. Borobudur, located 26 miles or 42 kilometers northwest of Yogyakarta, is the world's largest Buddhist temple and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. A structural mandala built in 3 tiers, it has a pyramidal base with 5 concentric square terraces, the trunk of a cone with 3 circular platforms, and a monumental stupa at the top. Also close to Yogyakarta is the Candi Prambanan, which is a Hindu temple complex said to have been established in the 8th century with the formation of a Hindu kingdom in Java. Surakarta is in the same vicinity and lies just to the northeast of Yogyakarta. It is also known as the Royal City of Solo. It is considered one of the least westernized cities on Java. We saw another royal city on this alignment at Gondar in Ethiopia. This is the Keraton Surakarta, also known as the Kasunanan. It is a royal palace that was built in 1745. Mangkunagaran Palace is also in Solo and was said to have been built in 1757 by the nephew of King Pakubuwono II. I have reason to believe there is a much greater historical significance to this place than is realized, and it falls into the category of the secret society history of the world. The alignment next crosses over the island of Bali. Bali has a large Hindu population, at over 80% of the population in the largely Muslim nation of Indonesia. This is one of the many Hindu temples on the island of Bali. Among many other things, Bali is noteworthy for its Subak irrigation system. The ancient ones of the advanced ancient civilization were master hydrologists. This irrigation system is a complex, pulsed, artificial ecosystem for the paddy fields of Bali, said to have been in use since the 9th century. It is owned by the farmers and was said to have been developed to facilitate fair distribution of water resources during the dry season. There are 5 terraces and a water temple associated with each one. This has been designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Cultural Landscape. According to Robert Kuhn, who has done extensive research on the 2 great earth serpents and the Earth's chakra system, Bali is the World Purification Center and is one of 2 places where the feminine rainbow serpent and the masculine plumed serpent cross. The other is Lake Titicaca, which straddles the border of Peru and Bolivia. The next island the alignment touches is Samba in the East Tenggara Nusa Islands, the southernmost province of Indonesia, and the eastern part of the Lesser Sunda Islands. Samba Island has a population of over 750,000 people. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to arrive in 1522. Then it became part of the Dutch East Indies in 1866, and the Jesuits established a mission on Samba also in 1866. Samba was known for its sandalwood exports and is still known for being one of the places in the world where megalithic burials still take place. This is Tenggero Waterfall on Samba Island. Based on what I have found throughout my research, I firmly believe waterfalls were constructed by the ancient advanced civilization and are somehow part of the Earth's grid system. East Nusa Tenggara Province consists of more than 500 islands, with the largest being West Timor. Kupang in West Timor is the provincial capital of the East Nusa Tenggara Islands. The Portuguese claimed the whole island of Timor in 1520. Then in 1640, the Dutch East India Company came in and settled West Timor, and then later the Dutch government took over its rule. The Portuguese ended up in East Timor, also known as Timor-Leste, including a small enclave in West Timor called Wakasi Ambeno, which were 2 original kingdoms of Timor. More on East Timor shortly. In 1945, after the end of World War II, West Timor became part of Indonesia when its independence from Dutch rule was proclaimed. For about 1400 years, from the 100s AD to 1500, Indonesia was comprised of Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms. We are told the rise of Muslim states started in the 1200s. East Nusa Tenggara, however, is the only province in Indonesia that is predominantly Roman Catholic, with its early colonization by the Portuguese. This province includes Komodo Island in the Lesser Sunda Islands, which has a national park, and home of the largest lizard on Earth, the Komodo dragon. Flores Island is also in this province. Flores is the 10th largest island of Indonesia. Flores Island is also known for the discovery of dwarf human skeletons in a cave, known as Homo floresiensis. It is also known for the discovery of large skeletons like giant rats, and is also another home for Komodo dragons. Just off the coast of West Timor are the islands of Roti and Simau. There is a ferry between Kupang and Roti every day. There are 7 languages spoken on the island, and it has living ancient arts and traditions. Simau lies 2 miles or 3 kilometers from West Timor, near Kupang. The inhabitants of the island of Simau are the Hilong people, considered to be the original inhabitants of the Kupang area. The Hilong language has 2 dialects. These are 2 Hilong weavers with examples of the textiles produced in West Timor and Simau. I bring all of this up about East Nusa Tenggara province for several reasons. One, Kupang, West Timor, is on at least 2 Earth grid alignments that I know of. Also, there has been quite a bit of interest in this region historically by European countries looking to expand their colonial empires, and the Roman Catholic Church. These are the means by which the ancient advanced civilization was taken down and its land and people claimed. There is one more thing I want to touch on before following the alignment to Australia, which is the subject of East Timor. East Timor, also known as Timor-Leste, since 2002 has been considered an independent country in maritime Southeast Asia. It is also predominantly Roman Catholic. Portuguese colonization began in 1769. Their influence was interrupted during World War II when Japan occupied East Timor. After the war, Portuguese control was reinstated. Then in 1974, Portugal abandoned its colony because of unrest at home, and the vacuum was filled for a brief time by the Revolutionary Front for an independent East Timor. This was countered by an invasion from Indonesia with Australian, British, and American support in December of 1975 due to fears of a communist state in Indonesia. What followed was a brutal and violent occupation of East Timor by Indonesia. Between 1974 and 1999, approximately 102,000 conflict-related deaths were reported, and there were over 200,000 refugees. Ultimately, on May 20th of 2002, a new constitution for the Democratic Republic of East Timor came into force, and a parliamentary government with a prime minister and president as head of state came into being. From here, the alignment passes through the Timor Sea and the Arafura Sea to hit land again at Darwin, Australia, which is the capital and largest city of the Northern Territory of Australia, which is sparsely populated. It is also called the outback capital of the Northern Territory. Notably in the historical record, Darwin was the location of the first bombing in Australia, which occurred in February of 1942, after Australia had officially declared war on Japan on December 9th of 1941. Japanese forces bombed military bases in Darwin in one day. One of the first hits and explosions was a ship loaded with dynamite and ammunition. Here's a picture of Darwin today. Of particular note is the shaped harbor in the foreground, which is a signature of places along these Earth grid alignments. Leaving Darwin, and just on the outskirts, we find Howard Springs Nature Park. I see exactly the same kind of thing everywhere. We are taught that there was nothing special going on in these places, nothing to see, so we fail to recognize the ancient megalithic masonry laying all around us. These are cut and shaped stones, and not natural occurrences, contrary to what we have been taught to believe by historical omission. These in Australia are like these 2 photos at Martin Nature Park in North Oklahoma City, lying around everywhere with no special attention drawn to them, just there, taunting us but not telling us. And only when you start realizing they are there, because until you notice them, they just blend into the landscape. The alignment goes through Kakadu National Park and then through Arnhem Land. First, Kakadu National Park, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Kakadu covers an area that is 7,646 square miles, or 19,804 kilometers. Besides its incredible biodiversity, landforms, and river systems, one of the most productive uranium mines in the world is surrounded by the park, shown in the map as the Ranger Mineral Lease. Approximately half of the land of Kakadu is Aboriginal, and Aboriginal people have occupied this land continuously for 40,000 years. And this is as good as any place to leave this photo here for your consideration. I personally think there is something to it, that the Australian Aborigines are of the tribe of Reuben. This kind of information is well hidden, so some digging is required to find it. But it is out there on the internet if you start looking for it. Anyway, back to Kakadu National Park. Here's some photos of the landscape there. Kakadu National Park is part of Arnhem Land, one of the 5 regions of the Northern Territory, and which the alignment crosses over. While the land is named for the ship of the Dutch East India Company captain who sailed it into the Gulf of Carpentaria, which I will be covering soon, the population of this region is actually mostly Aboriginal, estimated to be around 16,000. The following photos are of Arnhem Land. I have no difficulty seeing all of this as ancient infrastructure. I had a perceptual shift when I realized there is a code of keywords that covers up the ancient civilization. But for most, since we haven't been taught about this ancient civilization, and have only been taught to believe that it is the result of natural processes, that is how it is perceived. The alignment crosses the Gulf of Carpentaria in Queensland, Australia. The Gulf of Carpentaria is described as a shallow sea enclosed on 3 sides and bounded on the north by the Arafura Sea, which lies between Australia and New Guinea. Here is an aerial view of the Gulf of Carpentaria. The alignment passes through some islands in the Gulf, through the Pellew Islands and the Wellesley Islands. The Pellew Islands are in the southwest corner of the Gulf of Carpentaria. They are a group of 5 islands with a total area of 811 square miles, or 2,100 square kilometers, named in 1802 by Matthew Flinders. The Wellesley Islands are here, also named by Matthew Flinders for the first Marquess of Wellesley. The largest island in the group is Mornington Island. On its way to Cairns, the alignment crosses along the way from Corumba to Normanton, with snaky S-shaped river bends that look just like river bends from all over the world. The city of Cairns, Australia, is next on the alignment. Cairns is the 5th largest city in Queensland and the 14th largest city in Australia. It was said to have been established after the discovery of gold in the nearby Hodgkinson River gold field. Cairns is considered the gateway to the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef spans 1,400 miles or 2,300 kilometers off the Queensland coast. It is the world's largest coral reef system, with 2,900 individual reefs and 900 islands. It is visible from space and has been named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has long been known and used by Aboriginal Australians and Torres Strait Islanders and is part of their culture and spirituality. The Torres Strait Islands are a group of at least 274 small islands between Australia's Cape York and New Guinea. The Torres Strait is between the northernmost island and the south coast of Papua New Guinea in the north, to an unnamed passage between Lady Elliot Island and Fraser Island in the south. Lady Elliot Island is called a coral cay and has an eco-resort on it. It is a sanctuary for 1,200 species of marine life in the water surrounding it, including manta rays and turtles. And an old lighthouse. The ancient advanced civilization was a maritime civilization, and lighthouses around the world are remnants of it. And this is Fraser Island with its shaped shoreline, rocky coast, and a place called the Champagne Pools. In this close-up of an area in the Champagne Pools photo, this highlights the presence of straight lines and edges in the stone at this location. Here are 2 photos of the Great Barrier Reef. The first looks very much like a river in the water. The second is an example of a point that I would like to make with the stone in the foreground. What if the coral and marine life formed on top of sunken ancient infrastructure? Coral reefs form on sunken ships, like this one. We are heading into what would be considered the historical location of Mu, also known as Lemuria. There are some pretty amazing stone remains on the islands of this area, like these here at Nan Madol, shown on the previous map of Lemurian areas as part of a continent. Nan Madol consists of 100 stone and coral platforms built on top of artificial islands, including 150 million tons of basalt of unknown origin. The structure in this photo is constructed of basalt columns. As well as these ruins in the water near Yonaguni, now one of the Yaeyama Islands in the Okinawa Prefecture of Japan. So moving along the alignment of cities and places that I started following in Edmonton, Alberta, the next stop is New Caledonia. This island grouping is called a Special Collectivity of France, and the President of France to this day is its head of state. It includes the main island of Grande Terre, the Loyalty Islands, the Chesterfield Islands, the Balep Archipelago, and the Isle of Pines. The alignment goes through the capital of Noumea, on the west side of the southern end of Grande Terre. Also in Noumea, notice in this first picture the nicely shaped protected harbor. And these massive stones are found there. The Kanak people are the original people of New Caledonia, and they currently comprise less than half of the population. So somewhere in our historical narrative, I believe the real story of the native people of all of these colonized lands and islands by European countries got altered somehow. I say that because how could these people, according to what we have been told, build these? This is the Amadi Lighthouse in Noumea. This is a historic photo of the Bank of Indochina in Noumea on the top, which has the same street corner layout as buildings literally all over the world, like the one on the bottom left in Juarez, Mexico, in the middle the Ohio State Savings and Trust Bank in Toledo, Ohio, and on the bottom right in Kherson, Ukraine. And this is the Noumea Cathedral, said to have been built between 1887 and 1897, with all of its fancy stonework, and what looks to be older stonework on which the cathedral sits. And entranceway with arches and columns. I believe these buildings existed before the French colonization, and the existing history we have been taught about was grafted onto the ancient advanced worldwide civilization. I see the same design features everywhere, in places I would not expect to find them, spanning centuries, continents, and oceans, during times when supposedly communication and mobility between countries weren't supposed to be there. Just like these entranceways with similar arches and columns at St. Nicholas of Myra Russian Orthodox Church in Manhattan, New York, said to have been built in 1883. The Church of St. George in Norwich, England, said to have been built in the 1100s. Turku Cathedral in Turku, Finland, and this cathedral in Barcelona, Spain. Also, this information is available if you look for it on the internet. The inhabitants of this region, also known as Oceania, identify as the Hebrew tribe of Naphtali. Here are some other sites around the Grande Terre of New Caledonia. Moving on from here, the alignment goes on to cross the Kermadec Islands. These islands are considered part of New Zealand and are 600 miles or 966 kilometers northeast of there. They are a nature and marine reserve, and the only human presence is a permanently manned station, Raoul Island. This area is notable for earthquake activity. Photos of the Kermadec Islands include these of Raoul Island, Cheeseman Island with nice big blocky rocks, Macaulay Island, the second largest island of the Kermadec Islands and located halfway between Tonga and the North Island of New Zealand, and Curtis Island on at least one other alignment, and the Kermadec Islands as a whole are on other Earth grid alignments as well. Next we come to Punta Arenas, Chile. It is the capital of Chile's southernmost province, Magallanes and Antarctica Chilena. It is the largest city south of the 46th parallel south. It is situated on the Magellan Strait and is just north of Tierra del Fuego at the tip of South America. The photos on the left and in the middle are buildings in Punta Arenas, and on the right is in the city of Krasy in Siberia. And in this set is a comparison of a building in Punta Arenas, the Palacio Cerebron on the top, and the town hall in Kherson, Ukraine on the bottom. The first time I ever remember hearing the name Punta Arenas was when the news story started coming out about the ozone hole over the South Pole, which started coming out in the 1980s because Punta Arenas was the largest city affected by it. Next, the alignment goes through the South Sandwich Islands. This is interesting. Britain calls them a British overseas territory, and these islands are also claimed by Argentina. not unlike the Falklands dispute. More images from the South Sandwich Islands. Next, we come to Capetown, South Africa. Capetown is on at least 2 long-distance alignments that I have found. In the interest of organizing this information, I'm going to focus on the most famous landscape feature of Capetown, Table Mountain, as well as historic architecture and canals. While the history of this region is important, including what is happening today, I want to focus my attention primarily on worldwide similarities in infrastructure. This is Table Mountain, called a sandstone formation, and is now part of Table Mountain National Park with a pyramidal shape that is called Devil's Peak on one side, and on the other, a formation that has been dubbed Lion's Head. The easiest hiking route to get to the top of Table Mountain is through Plot Cliff Gorge, where we find upon closer examination what looks like a relatively flat surface with straight lines indicative of cut blocks of stone. We just haven't been taught that's what it is, so that's not how we see it. Here is a comparison of the National Library in Capetown on the left and the National Archives in Washington, D.C. on the right. Here's some more examples. On the left is a building with fancy wrought ironwork on Long Street in Capetown, and on the right is a similar looking building in the French Quarter in New Orleans, Louisiana. Here is a star fort in Capetown, Fort Ticonderoga in northern New York State, and this star fort is in Hakodate on the island of Hokkaido in Japan. Star forts are found all over the Earth, with not only star patterns, but other shapes as well, and differing in design complexity. In many cases, like with the example of Fort Ticonderoga, they have been put to military use. There has been considerable research showing that this was not the original use of these beautiful structures, like perhaps as a component of some kind of energy system. And like with so many things, up until recently they have been ignored by conventional history. Their existence doesn't fit with the historical narrative we have been given. This is Fort Portange in the Netherlands. One last comparison. There are sophisticated canal systems around the Earth in places you would not expect to find them. Here is a canal in Capetown, one in St. Petersburg, Russia, and one canal of many found on the Gold Coast in Queensland on Australia's east coast. I wanted to share with you historical places and events, from capital cities to royal cities to endless civil wars, death, and destruction, that I have found in my travels, in this video, specifically looking at cities and places along one long-distance alignment, from Edmonton, Alberta to Capetown, South Africa. This was one of many that I have tracked, and I can say the same thing about the other alignments. It would appear that the takedown of the Old World Order and the replacement of it by the New World Order deliberately took place on the Earth's grid system, which was then subsequently removed from our collective awareness.